Welcome to Customers for Life, a presentation by Forbes Insights in association with Sitecore. Hello, I'm Kasia Moreno, Editorial Director at Forbes Insights, and I'm very excited to be presenting to you the findings of a report published by Forbes Insights in association with Sitecore Customers for Life. I'm delighted to be joined here today by Bruce Rogers, Chief Insights Officer at Forbes Media, and Mark Floisand, VP Product Marketing at Sitecore. They will add their perspective and insights to the findings. First, let me give you some background about how our research was conducted and how this report was put together. As you can see on the slide, we surveyed 312 senior executives based in North America. They were all very high-level executives from large companies. All companies were at least 500 million in revenues, and almost a fifth had 10 billion or more in revenues. We also interviewed academics and industry executives to get more insight. Among the top key findings from the report are that customer experience is expected to surpass product and pricing as a key business differentiator. In fact, it is 6 to 7 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than to keep an existing one. And 86% of consumers will pay more for a better experience. Bruce, in light of these statistics, do you think that companies understand the importance of the metric of customer lifetime value?
Thanks, Kasia, and it's a pleasure to be here and discuss customer lifetime value and becoming a customer-centric organization. And not just from the findings, but in the conversations that I have, the great honor and privilege to speak with CMOs and marketing leaders, I can tell you that this is very much a critical metric that folks should be using, but not all of them are using it there as really a way to provide a central metric to run their business. And certainly it is a great opportunity to folks to have this as a way to provide a direction for how they can become a more customer-centric. And certainly, as we know from the statistics and just from research from years past, that it's always cheaper to have a engaging relationship, ongoing perspective, and continuing opportunities to resell and upsell existing customers than it is to create new customers.
Mark, do you have anything to add to Bruce's comments about the importance of CLV metric?
Sure. Customer lifetime value is a crucial element that everybody should be tracking against. One of the issues we see is that many organizations just don't have this as a number and aren't looking to necessarily extend it to what is ultimately the outer limit of a customer's life.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights on this one. We have spoken about the importance of the CLV metric, and it seems that a majority of companies, 94%, understand that it is important to keep customers for life. And yet there is a very serious gap here. 49%, less than half, say that they're happy with their marketing technology to support these goals. Bruce, why is this discrepancy happening in the market?
Well, I think there's a couple of things happening here with marketing technology. One, the ownership around technology sometimes is varied and distributed throughout the organization. And secondly, there are sort of half solutions that people have brought on board and not fully encompassing all the capability and functionality that certainly marketing leaders would expect to have both a full experience and knowledge and view into the customer. And I think sort of this leads to a discussion, we'll get this into a little bit, around how organizations are siloed, that there are different parts of the organization that own different parts of the customer experience between marketing and customer care, that the CMO doesn't run the call center because that's under the COO, and all the variations in between. So I really see this as a challenge on the one hand, but a huge opportunity to kind of look at this more holistically.
Mark, Bruce mentioned half solutions. In today's world, are half solutions in terms of focusing on customers for life good enough?
No, I think what we need to help companies understand is that these are ultimately organizations dealing with real people. And so if you've got the information about your consumers in one system and further information in another, this sort of fragmented approach is not enabling people to see the full picture of the consumers who are ultimately trying to give them money. So no, one can't exist with these sort of fragmented half systems.
Mark, when discussing the previous slide, you were talking about the fragmented systems, and yet marketers want and need a single view of the customer. Just how fragmented those systems are, on average, organizations use 36 different data gathering systems, and only a quarter of our survey respondents feel that those systems in their organizations are fully integrated. In fact, 13% say that there is no level of integration at all. Bruce, are companies doing enough to arrive at a single view of the customer? How to overcome this challenge?
Yeah, Kasia, thanks. I can tell you in the conversations that I typically have with marketing leaders, in particular the CMO position, is that one, they are demanding a single view of the customer, but are really challenged around the complexity and are really crying out for a way to simplify their lives. And certainly, as we said previously, that there are different parts of the organization that have responsibility for different systems within the organization. So the CIO might have some component and certainly be a partner with the CMO in those relationships, and we certainly see that as a key relationship. And if you have a good CMO-CIO relationship, then the likelihood that you have a more of a disparate, unorganic look at the customer is probably rises as you would imagine in large organizations where customer data sets sit in different places. But certainly this is a crying need that folks are constantly asking a way and for solutions to simplify their lives.
Mark, Bruce was talking about the single view of the customer, how important it is, and also about how to align the leadership within organizations around it. Do you have anything to add to this issue of leadership?
Yeah, I think one of the things that organizations can do is recognize that consumers have become increasingly sophisticated at dealing with them across many different channels, and they don't care that business systems have got all these channels in different places. It's up to leadership to unite and recognize that consumers should be treated as individuals, and that to do that you need a single view of them, aggregating all of this disparate information together into one place to be able to best service them.
And do you think that in today's world the leadership do realize this to the full extent?
I think it's a transition we're seeing firms go through. You know, the analogy for me is if you think of back in the day when companies realized they needed, for example, big accounting and distribution systems, you had, of course, the leadership of the finance and operations team working very closely with IT because it was too important to get wrong. Fast forward to things like customer relationship management, Salesforce automation. Again, you saw the heads of sales work really closely with IT because it was too big to get wrong. And I think what we're now seeing is marketing has come of age here, where the head of marketing is working very closely, the leadership of marketing is working very closely with the leadership in IT to ensure that they can reunite these systems and get this single view of the customer, because the risk of getting it wrong is too high.
Thank you so much, Mark, for your comments. And I wanted to also add that our report shows that companies that have very good cooperations among different C-level functions and leadership really have much better results in terms of getting single and personalized view of the customer. We have been talking about how important personalized customer interaction is, and also how challenging it is, and how it can be hurt by silos and lack of integration within an organization. To remedy that, in fact, 62% of survey respondents believe that it is a high priority to develop a single centralized system for customer data. Bruce, how can a centralized system help?
Well, Kasia, partly we've been talking about this sort of over and over in a way, and it probably can't be emphasized enough, Kasia, that a centralized system is key to having a holistic view of the customer. The issue is that customers are not siloed. Customers expect to have a single view of. They expect you to have a single view of themselves. So when they call your call center or go to your website or engage with you in social media, they don't expect that one does not connect to the other, and is often a point of frustration on the customer side, whether that's consumers interacting with an airline or a travel service, we had the chance to talk to folks from Expedia about that and how that works. And we've all had our own personal experiences, or whether it's a B2B organization and you have a series of various people throughout the organization who kind of handle customer care. So our customers are not siloed. So it is really incumbent upon us to have that single view. And the important point that I think can add is in how do you move forward on this, and we'll talk a little bit about sort of tactical ways to kind of bring this to life, and Mark will get more in depth with that later. But I think it is the obligation of the marketing leader, if not the CMO, to push through the organization to be an evangelist for creating this single view of the customer, even though in many respects they may not even have within the organization the responsibility to that. So they may not have the responsibility, but in my view, they have the obligation. And the most successful marketing organizations, the more high-performing marketing organizations, and therefore the more successful companies in general, are certainly headed in this direction.
Mark, Bruce mentioned how sometimes customers are frustrated, yes, very often dealing with certain organizations. How to make sure that it doesn't happen from the customer's point of view?
Well, I think that the key thing about it is recognizing that all of the information companies acquire about individuals should be used carefully and selectively to deliver personalized information back to them, irrespective of which channel they're on. Some of the most frustrating experiences come because this information isn't joined up, and you have the classic example of, for example, visiting a hotel and immediately still seeing adverts for that hotel as you travel elsewhere online, or being sent emails for things that you've already purchased. That's just annoying, and it really breaks the experience for customers when they realize that they're not being treated as one individual, but basically a number in a set of disparate systems.
I agree. That's very annoying, and we really need to be taking care of it. Analytics are critical to keeping customers for life. It seems that data analytics is one of the top strategic priorities for corporations now. Use of analytics, our research shows, our survey and interviews reveal, leads to better customer communication. Bruce, tell us about the correlation between analytics and better customer service.
Sure. I can tell you, Kasia, that not only in the research that we've done here and in both the quantitative side of that, but qualitatively the folks that we've spoken to add context and perspective to this really helps to bring this to light. And as I said, in general, this is one of the key aspects, having a handle on data analytics, and in fact for high-performing companies, it's one of the key deltas between sort of leaders and laggards in this area. And when we start to look at companies that like Polaris, who we had a chance to speak with, and they really provided a great perspective, because sometimes it's not just the data, and then sometimes it's not just analytics. It's as much a culture around it, and the value that brings, and sort of instituting someone who can bring that to life. And in the case of Polaris, where really the CEO, Scott Wine, the chairman and CEO Scott Wine, brought in Tim Larson to really be the head of customer care. And it wasn't just to develop data and analytics around it. It was to create a culture around putting the customer at the center of the organization. Certainly data and analytics will inform that process. But part of it, and most importantly, as I say, was getting the organization together and to think differently, from the board right down to their service centers and their educational programs with their dealers, and that had a huge impact on their business. And just sort of culturally using certainly a unified data system, but more importantly to think about customers and not about data points. That is, that culturally they got everybody to talk about, we instead of selling more units, we sold more customers. We had more customers become owners of Polaris ATV vehicles. And it seems like a simple thing, but it required a huge, really challenge to kind of turn the thinking in the organization around. But certainly Tim's success, and that success was borne out with the success of the company, which had record sales following those initiatives. It's really something that was that helped put them at the forefront and really put customers at the center, from as I said, from the boardroom down to the service organization.
Mark, Polaris is one of the organizations that we describe in our report that clearly is doing something right. How can other marketers also better use analytics and improve their results?
A key factor is whether those analytics are accessible to marketeers. It's really important that the data about customers, about what they're interacting with, what they're working with, what they like and what they don't like, is acted upon in real time and made accessible to marketers in tools that are easy to use, and that they can actually take action from the data and the insights that they're gleaning. If you need complex data scientists to surface any particular piece of information, you're automatically bottlenecking what's available to marketeers. It has to be much more open, much more accessible, and much more actionable for each and every marketeer to be able to use this data.
Thank you. That's really very insightful. Thanks so much for your comment. So here on this slide, we come upon another discrepancy and a gap that needs to be filled. The majority, 2/3 of respondents, do say that they prioritize personalized communications, but only 1/3 say that their companies are well aligned to this goal. Bruce, why the discrepancy? Why is personalized communication not pursued more successfully and not the goal of more companies?
Well, Kasia, I think it's not the goal because the challenge is probably too great within the organization to do this. And even though marketing organizations and the onset of the digital age, we've been talking about this as the promise of digital marketing, the ability to have the right message to the right person at the right time. But certainly, one, the technology has had to mature, and two, the implementation and really experience with the success of technology that is really bringing this to the fore is still an ongoing process within most organizations. So I think it's an aspiration for most, but a challenge for many.
Mark, Bruce just said that personalized communications are a challenge that is too great for many companies. Do you agree with Bruce that this is such a huge challenge?
I think for every company you have to start somewhere. And we have seen that many marketeers sometimes look at this notion of trying to deal with all of these disparate channels and all of the different devices that consumers are now interacting on and moving across as somewhat daunting, but you have to make a start. And there are ways to do that, to start small and to build out expertise within companies, but one has to start. You can't afford to sit back and not try and address consumers in the places they prefer to interact with you on and the devices and the channels that they choose to jump across. And, if you don't make a start on it, you're falling behind.
Thank you so much, and let's, leave our listeners with the words, it's daunting, but you have to start because otherwise you're falling behind. Forbes research revealed the importance of customer experience, having a centralized database, and personalized messaging. Now for a view of how Sitecore can help companies with these issues is Sitecore's Mark Floisand.
Thank you. Yeah, Sitecore can provide several opportunities for marketeers. Firstly, in terms of collecting that experience data, which is crucial to actually delivering these personal interactions in the first place, as well as information that's from other customer-facing platforms such as content or CRM systems, customer relationship management systems, and so on, really providing marketeers with a robust data set that enables you to start to see each and every individual consumer for whom they are, and also to effectively share what's known about customers out to other systems as well, to improve the overall experience across the organization. Testing and optimization is a fundamental part of what we do to help, and I'll touch on that in turn. Equally, to try and overcome this concern about personalization and grappling with it, you need a system that will also effectively select the best content and take advantage of the information you have in your customer data sets in real time to automate this stuff and make it a whole lot easier. Sitecore's vision is actually to empower organizations like yours to build those effective, meaningful relationships that enable you to win customers for life. So we are very, very clear on the fact that success is about keeping lifetime customers. Crucial to attracting and keeping customers for life is to be able to communicate with them throughout the marketing cycle, from when they are still doing initial homework, really just becoming aware of your organization and the offers that you have, to starting to consider you among a myriad of other alternatives, perhaps trialing your product, and ultimately beginning to purchase it, culminating in a transaction. Well, that's not where it stops. After purchase, customers go through, hopefully, this honeymoon period of enjoying the product that they've got. Think of, if you're in the car business, of that new car smell driving it out of the showroom. And you want that new car smell to last as long as possible. Ultimately, consumers are becoming indifferent. It's just something they bought. It's just something that gets them to work, whatever it happens to be. And ultimately, they move into a boredom phase. And we don't want people in that environment. We want, over their lifetime, to be able to move them back around this wheel. Every organization wants to keep this cycle going and ensure that you maintain customers for life. And Sitecore can help in that process. Crucial to this is to know every customer that you have. That enables you to shape or tailor every experience that you have with them, irrespective of which channels they engage on. So first, know every customer. How do we do that? Well, the challenge is that data is spread across the organization, as we heard Bruce say. And it's coming from all of these different systems, whether they are CRM systems or social media channels, people interacting with mobile apps, your customer support lines, obviously website traffic, landing pages, and so on, as well as things like point-of-sale systems. And so the issue is that all of these systems house customer information, and it's disparate. To solve this problem, the first thing you need to do is be able to join the dots and reunite this customer data from all of these different data sources into a single marketing repository. Sitecore has built a Sitecore experience database to be that central pool for gathering all this information, to act as a central hub to feed all this customer data into, and to connect it together and join those dots. As marketeers, you want to therefore be able to see every customer and have a profile of them that tracks everything they've done with your organization over a timeline, from their first initial visit on your website anonymously to every subsequent interaction they've had with you across all these different systems, to give you a complete view of your customer, and to see, for example, what behavior they've exhibited on your website and across your channels, segment them accordingly, profile them accordingly, and use that information to deliver the best experience possible to them. Which leads us to shaping every experience, how to effectively tailor and automatically present the best possible set of content for that customer in the moment that's most appropriate and most relevant to them. Clearly, being able to get access to all of the information you have about the paths that people have taken through your sites and your channels, find out what's working, which groups of people are bringing more value to your organization. All of these data points are absolutely critical. And so you're going to need reporting that delivers you information about not only what's working, what channels are working, but also who, which segments, which groups, which personas are bringing most value to your organization, and where that's taking place, which channels are performing best, which landing pages are working for you, which interactions and experiences are delivering real business value. Crucially important is also the ability to be able to quickly create and target segments that are based upon the kind of behavioral information you have about customers. So whether that is being able to quickly assemble segments of folks that have exhibited similar behavior on a website, or supplement that with additional demographic data and produce segments and subsegments that you're producing increasingly specific communications to, is absolutely vital in delivering on this promise of personalization. And it's also important to be able to deliver personalized and automated messaging to your customers according to their own customer consumption life cycles. If I've just bought something, I'm expecting an email that day unique to me, not 3 days later or a week later, but that day. But that same email shouldn't go out to anyone else until they've been through the same kind of phase as well. So all of these things need to be coordinated and orchestrated so that they're personalized, but at the same time automated so that you're not having to do the heavy lifting of implementing it. It's also really important as a marketeer to be able to visualize just what it is that you're presenting to each of your different personas and groups of people. So make sure that your system is able to visualize and simulate personalization so that there are no surprises for you or your customers. A crucial thing about ensuring that customers get what they want is that you test everything. Make sure that you're enabling everyone in your teams to actually be able to test everything. Test every change to a website. Test every change to a landing page. Test mobile applications. Test emails. Make testing a fundamental ethos of how you communicate with your customers to ensure that you're yielding the best results both for your business and for the organization. So ensure that whatever systems you're using, testing is fundamentally built in and accessible to everybody in an easy-to-use format. And you should strive to optimize everything, everywhere. This might sound ambitious, but again, if you take the first step of starting to optimize and put in place alternatives and personalizations on the most simplistic elements on the experiences you're delivering to customers, over time they build to a point where you really are able to get the best out of the investment you're making in your marketing by knowing that everything is indeed being optimized throughout and that your marketeers are able to see firsthand what's actually working well and what's not through having tight real-time feedback as to which are the most effective personalizations and optimizations. Sitecore puts all this together for you in a way as a single connected platform through our Sitecore Experience platform that does several things. Firstly, it personalizes all of your messaging across all of the channels that you're communicating with customers on, whether those are websites, email channels, social channels, print, microsites, etc. All of those places can be managed through Sitecore. Sitecore also enables you to manage all of the content, the prompt information, and the digital assets that go to constitute those messages, and each of them is tailored in turn to each and every customer. That's done by Sitecore constantly analyzing and getting insight into what's working, where the best value is coming from, which content, which assets are performing best, and making decisions and automating that process so that you are delivering the best possible promotion and presentation to your customers. That's predicated on all of this customer data having been collected and connected so that information about your customers is being used as the core source of determining what they're going to be interested in, what's going to be relevant for them, and on what channels do they prefer to consume it. And of course, marketing is not a standalone, as we spoke about earlier. Your system has to integrate with other business systems to ensure connectivity with things like e-commerce channels and so on, as well as tap into things like your CRM systems to get that information about your customers back into that marketing repository. And for those of you who are new to Sitecore, I'll just give you a quick overview of the organization. Sitecore was founded 15 years ago. We're coming up actually for close to 1,000 employees worldwide with strong backers. We have over 4,000 brands running on Sitecore today, a huge network of developers and community members that contribute to the product and the development. We have a network of partners globally that are certified to deliver solutions for your business. We're also very close to Microsoft. We have been their Independent Software Vendor Partner of the Year last year. And from a financial point of view, we are solidly profitable and have been growing consistently for the last few years. And again, our vision is to empower organizations like yours to build those effective, meaningful relationships that win you customers for life. That's at our heart and soul. It's the vision of the company, and it's what drives us. So we're passionate about ensuring that you do attract and keep customers for life. If you want to know more about how Sitecore can help you in this journey of managing and keeping customers for life, go to sitecore.net/Sitecore8. There are several resources there, including this white paper, Sitecore 8 Simplifying the Extraordinary, which will give you a lot more information about everything we covered in this webinar.
Hi, Mark. It seems that we have some time for some questions for the audience that just arrived here. And the first question is very practical. We have heard a lot of very good insights and findings and statistics. What does it mean for me immediately? What is my takeaway? What do I do now, tomorrow, to act on what you just were talking about?
Yeah, it's a good question, Kasia, because I appreciate some of this stuff can look intimidating, and there is a lot of information. One of the first things that people can do is take an honest look at their own organization and try and assess their own state of readiness for grappling with all these different digital channels. And actually, Sitecore has a tool for that. On our website, we have our customer experience maturity model. It's basically a free self-assessment test that will very quickly tell you whereabouts you are in terms of digital maturity and dealing with customer experiences across this. So that's a really useful first step to just get a handle on where your company sits today and therefore what's ahead of you.
And once, the assessment tool tells me, for example, that the culture of my company needs some tweaking, how do I go about doing that? That was another question that we got. That's probably one of the toughest things to do.
Yeah, that is a tough one. And I think everyone that's worked in technology knows the analogy of the sort of three-legged stool of people, process, and systems. Obviously, I've talked to some degree about the systems today, but the people and the process are absolutely critical. It's super important that your teams are on side, that they see a common goal, and can be united around this notion of keeping customers for life. And that's a relatively easy message to communicate because we're also all consumers. We get what it means to know what a good experience feels like. And so motivating people to want to do that in your company for your customers is a personal thing that you can pull on. But the other leg of that stool, systems, people, and process, is the process piece of it. And again, if you look on the Sitecore website, we have a team called our Sitecore Business Optimization Services, which is quite a mouthful, but SBOS, as they're affectionately known, have a series of methodologies that include things like workshops to bring people together to start forming the initial processes that need to take place inside an organization for change management, and to put in place the sort of operational mechanisms that take advantage of how you need to act in order to keep customers for life.
I also have one question, kind of more philosophical. How to, we're all consumers, people who work in customer service were consumers too. Why are we having such issues understanding that the customer is on a lifetime journey? Why are we still going after, new consumers more?
I think some of that is just history. It's been relatively easy, and I say this as a marketeer of over 20 years, showing my age here, but I've always had a budget, and it's always easy to spend that budget on buying eyeballs, buying awareness, but the world has changed. That's not how people are accustomed to be communicated with anymore. The last decade has turned on its head how we as consumers expect to be communicated with the brands that we do, because the power is in our hands as consumers, not in the power of organizations to tell us what to buy. That's a fundamental sea change, and it's something that some companies have been slower to grapple with than others. But in order to do it, think of your own experience as a consumer and the sort of obstacles that you faced when a bad experience when you see one, right? You're on a website that feels great. You go to buy something, and next thing you find yourself in a shopping cart that doesn't feel anything like where you were just looking. You buy something, and the response you get from the folks on the phone when you call up afterwards is quite different. And in fact, they don't even really know what you've got. All of those disjointed bits, that's what breaks brand experience. And it's those disparate systems and silos and departments that have been built up over time that our goal is to reunite, because the consumer expects more.
Thank you, Mark. I guess the main takeaway is that, and when we deal with consumers, let's not forget we're all consumers. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We do hope that you got some good takeaways and insights from the presentation. Thank you so much.